welcome back to the postseason edition of Rake Position. We're four lifelong friends living out the dream from the comfort of the chairs. I'm Aaron, the host.
Hello, everybody. Again, I'm Joe, the groundskeeper. This time last Wednesday, I was on a plane. I was struggling to keep up. I was struggling to sit up in my seat. I guess you could say I had about a week back.
Every time. Oh, man. I'm Jay Lee, the Rover.
He's so proud of himself. Look at him smiling over there.
He loves it. He loves it.
Yeah, he's the only one that's laughing. I'm Corey, the Stat Man, and welcome to our first after season episode. It's like After Dark, but after season.
After season special. Yeah, so we're here to finally recap the World Series, the playoffs. We had some plans to do it a couple of days ago, and the playoffs got over quick. It was a 5-gamer instead of a 7-gamer, which we were all kind of expecting it to be. And so we got lots to talk about with the World Series. So, Jared, start us off with just your high-level thoughts on
High-level thoughts
occurred.
First thing that came to my head is no Garcia, no problem.
That's a good one.
Not going to lie. When I heard the news that he was not going to be playing anymore, I was like, well, I think this just got pretty interesting. But the Rangers said, yeah, we're okay. And proceeded to just dominate.
Yeah, Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Diamondbacks ran out of gas. I think you kind of need some star power on your team if you're going to go all the way. And the Diamondbacks probably have some young guys that will become that. But Texas had those star guys that just made him win in 5 games. Congrats. Somebody called it here. I mean, I hope we'll get to the actual predictions that we made. But that was my thoughts.
I forget what they were.
Same.
He's the only one that had the Rangers. But
I have 5 games, so I'm just as right as he is.
I suppose that's true. I would say you were even better because you had 4 options and he only had 2.
Yeah.
As far as the actual World Series, I mean, like when you got a guy like Travis Jankowski that can just step right in, it's barely even a difference. It's hard to tell the difference. I think even visually, between Travis Jankowski and Adolis Garcia. But
like Joe and Jordan, pretty similar.
But yeah, I think especially with the star power, you saw. I mean, Seager obviously won the MVP. Semien finally got out of his rut, and kind of showed up there. Those guys that they paid, performed how they hoped they would. Evaldi did good enough, I guess. I mean, he won the game. It was a little puckering sometimes, I bet, for Rangers fans. But it was Game 7s are always better. So like the fact that it went 5 games was kind of sad. And it especially that I think a couple of the games were not particularly competitive either. So it did seem like the Diamondbacks ran out of gas. And it was a bummer. And it was the least watched World Series. I did watch it, so I was one of those least watchers. But I mean, it makes me sad because I feel like this is I'm going off into left field here. But this whole year we had heard how it seemed like baseball was more watched and more people were enjoying it, and then you get to the World Series and it's like, oh, nobody. But there's a lot more that was competing with it at the end of the year. Like it's a weird time because like for a lot of the summer, baseball is what is available. And then you get to the postseason and there's college football and there's the NFL starting. And I don't think the NBA had started yet, but it was right around the corner. So ESPN, I don't know what's going on with them and their baseball coverage being non-existent.
Yeah, a lot of it is
thing.
The media not covering it well, and MLB has had a marketing problem for a few years now. It's hard to watch. If you have the MLB package, MLB TV, can you watch it even? Like, I had to watch it on Hulu. Like, here, you can watch baseball all season long, and then when it gets to the playoffs, our main vessel for delivering the product is no longer valid. And it's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So I don't blame on the Rangers and Diamondbacks. I think you saw with the Rangers parade, like Arlington and the area was dying for this. First ever World Series win for the Rangers, which is pretty cool. That leaves just like a handful of teams left, 5, I think, maybe, that haven't won one. But yeah, the 2 guys that I was going to mention, you hit on as well. Jankowski stepped in, went 2-4, 2 RBIs, game 4, so they didn't really miss Garcia in that game. And then Semien, I picked him for our least valuable players, what we were naming it. In the ALCS, he had a 510 OPS. In the World Series, he had a 917, and he got a hit in every game, at least one hit in every game in the World Series. So Semien finally showed up. And so that also helped after Garcia went down. But yeah, exciting. Joe picked the Rangers, even though he had the Diamondbacks predicted. It was all great. So any other final thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, I thought I had kind of all the way through the playoffs. Was it kind of felt like Diamondbacks were, I'll say old school, even though I don't, does anybody know what that means? It kind of felt like Diamondbacks were old school, and a lot of these teams that they went up against were the new school, like the 3 true outcomes, like we're hitting a bomb, we're striking out, or we're going to get a walk. I wouldn't say the Rangers are like completely into that mold now, but I was kind of cheering for the Diamondbacks because I don't know, I guess because I'm old and I like some of the old school things that happen of smaller ball and running and defense and all that stuff, which they did. It's just they couldn't get the big hit in the World Series to win a few more of those games. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody tries to maybe pattern some of the things that they had success with, or if we just maybe keep seeing the transition towards if you give me 50 bombs, you can bat 180. We'll take 9 of you. That probably wins, unfortunately. It was cool.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the postseason stats real quick. I hadn't looked at this, but you mentioned it. Diamondbacks at 254, Rangers at 252, but the Rangers had 9 more homers, drove in 19 more runs. So yeah, the thunder for the Rangers prevailed through the hit and run, contacts, steals, all that stuff. It's just harder to score that way.
I did see something about how maybe the Diamondbacks were the team throughout the season even that maybe benefited the most from kind of the new rules that we saw this year. I mean, they were a very defense kind of first team. So, when you can't place your fielders maybe exactly where you'd want to, you need a little bit better defenders out there. And then also with the steals and the bigger bases and that stuff. So I think we may see some teams kind of pattern after the Diamondbacks in sort of that regard as far as defense and running and because it got them awfully close. But
I'm sure the teams' analytics departments are busy this offseason with a whole year of data on the new rules. I'm sure they kept up with it throughout the year too, but they'll be putting the pen to the paper or whatnot, trying to decide, hey, how can we take advantage of these new rules? Maybe they'll hire me to come in and give some input.
I like it. You're great with stats. That gives me a follow-up question, which I didn't put on the agenda. Didn't know how far we talked about it, but it kind of goes to the point of like being built for the season versus being built for the postseason. Give me some input on what you guys think as far as the format. Historically speaking, the format's always been different. It's always been a different strategy in the playoffs, less depth, more star power. And then I think you saw that even more so this year with the way the bracket was laid out as well too. So share your thoughts on, do you like this style, pros, cons of having a vastly different strategy at the most important time of the season? Go for it, Jared.
Me?
Yeah, you started us
Okay.
off last time. We'll start with you again.
I think I'm gonna keep my answer pretty simple. I think you just I guess it depends on what market you're in, but whatever you got to do to try to make the playoffs. Like I think you saw a bunch of different teams go a different route. I mean, you saw a team like the Diamondbacks who didn't have a lot of star power make it to the final game, but then you saw the Rangers, the complete opposite end, who had star power and paid the big bucks, made it and win. So I think it truly comes down to what you're willing to spend as a team. And I think the Diamondbacks did a really good job of, I think, doing just enough to make it get in. And I mean, we mentioned it all through the playoffs. Like that's all you got to do is get in, and then you can see what happens. So, if you're asking me my personal opinion, I like the way of being more strategic and doing more with less. So I like the Diamondbacks route, just because I think it adds more interesting, and you have to have more people step up to get you in that spot to where like you could pay these star players who obviously show up and do their job and can carry you. But I don't know, it's just exciting. It's more exciting for me to see a team need more pieces to make it happen. And when all those pieces come together, I think that's super cool to see.
Yeah, I'd echo the just get in mentality. You know, we see especially the wild card teams, the ones that are just getting in are doing well. And I'm will probably always be on the train of pitching wins championships, and I'm going to continue to be on that train. So, you throw strikes, you don't walk guys, you give up some solo bombs to these teams that are, just stacking power hitters, but they're solo bombs. You give up maybe 3. So as you push for the playoffs, I think if you're going to make a trade, mine would always be for a pitcher. I think pitchers are going to win the championships, and I don't think that's going to change even with the different approach that hitters are taking nowadays. So I don't know if that answered your question, Aaron, but
no, that's good. I didn't have much of a plan for it.
Throw strikes.
See where you guys go with it.
Yeah. It is interesting because I like when you get to the playoffs, you are, I think, essentially hoping that if you're winning the game, there's 3 guys in the bullpen that are coming in and pitching. So you don't need a lot back there. You need 3. Like you hope your starter goes 5 or 6. Maybe one of the guys out of the bullpen goes 2, and then you just wrap it up. So like you don't need 8 guys out there that are going to help you get through a season. And then it is interesting. And I mean, I assume part of the reason you bring this up is because of what happened at the Braves, where they had.
It wasn't just the Braves, but yeah.
No, I know, but like they had a great team. They had. I mean, their depth wasn't great, but they had good enough depth to have a very good season. And then once you get there, you see these teams that, basically they've got 26 people on the roster, but they're using 15 maybe, like in the playoffs. So like the Braves maybe have the vastly superior 26-man roster, but when you boil it down to 15 used in a 5 or 7 game series, there's maybe not that much of a difference. So I don't want to say the regular season's too long. It's a lot of games though. So I think that's where again, like I think Jared said, we said when the playoffs started, it doesn't matter though. Like once you get to the postseason, I would like to see because the Rangers, I think, basically, besides injuries, threw out the same lineup every game for the most part. I don't know if there was any changes. Where the Diamondbacks, you at least saw Rivera and Longoria, and there were some lefty-righty splits, and they, I think, had a lot more people coming out of their bullpen, which was nice to see a little bit more strategy. Where again, I think the Rangers were forced into it in the Scherzer game because he got hurt. But other than that, it was like you were hoping Spores, Chapman, Leclerc, and then moving on. Like you hope that's the end of the game.
Yeah, the Rangers had 7 quality starts in the playoffs. Phillies had 6. Diamondbacks had 4. So those are the top three. Houston had 2. Nobody else had more than 1 quality start. My thing is what you said. Yes, the season is super long. For it not to matter that much in the playoffs, why? And the Braves were a prime example just because, they are my team. But they go into it with the extra rest so they can set the rotation. But then there's so many days off that the Phillies, game 1, could basically do mix and match bullpen game and take advantage. They don't need the advantage because they got 2 days off, so they can use everybody game 1, blow the bullpen out, and know you get a rest game. You get a day off before you play again. And so it's a completely different strategy. If they don't have that day off built in, then they can't go straight to a bullpen game 1 of the series. Now, if Ranger Suarez was mowing him down anyway, so it probably wouldn't have mattered. He probably would have thrown 8 shutout innings instead of just 3 1/3 or whatever it was. But for the strategy to be completely different in the most important time, and then no other sport you don't have your top teams showing up. Like, it's just weird. Now, maybe that's because you can't pay the refs off in baseball as easily as you can in football and basketball to make sure the top teams get there. Brady. But I don't know. It's just weird that I always love the parody of baseball. But the fact that it was completely upside down and it's so different for the postseason than the whole regular season.
Yeah.
It's just
you are watching a different game.
Yeah.
Like it is a totally different situation.
But I enjoyed all of it. So it's just weird that's so different.
Yeah. Jared?
You alluded to it earlier in the beginning of what you're saying, Corey, but you said you normally have 3 guys who can come out of the bullpen and shut it down. So I think the viewers and the listeners all want to know, between us 4, who's starting the game, who's coming in at the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. Just a quick little who you think that would be. I have mine and I have my reasons, but I'll just throw it to you guys real quick.
Can I go first on this? I love this question. Yeah. I'm the Kyle Hendricks, old Felix Hernandez coming in. So I'll go as long as I can, guys. But that second time through the order when the exit velos have gone from 80 to 110, they've got me. So then that's when you bring in somebody like Corey, who's got the Jordan Hicks in him. It's coming hard, but man, they'll keep you honest with the high and tight, up and away, off the backstop, whatever. And then we'll bring in the bullpen aces, Joe, and probably Jared's the closer. I think Jared's got a little extra arm in him than the rest of us with some accuracy.
I agreed with all of that, and for the same reasons, until I think I'm going to flip-flop me and Joe.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. I think maybe I do have a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I don't. But I put Joe last because I think Joe's got 9 pitches in him, and then his arm's done. So, but they're going to come as hard as that he can throw them. So, I mean, I think that's kind of where I put it. And
so, Jared, you have to make sure we get to the 9th inning then.
Correct. Yeah.
Because me and Corey ain't getting you there.
Yeah.
I think I'd put Jared at the back end because you're the only person who actually, I think, pitched on a regular basis in a sort of actual baseball game scenario that wasn't a bunch of old men. But I pitched
when I was 14, and then I did pitching until I was 20 or 19 or whatever. That summer we came back.
Like, I think I like Joe's, I think, more of a situational guy because he's going to be coming at you from a weird angle. Like, you don't know where the slot's at. It might be 3/4 one. It might be next time. It might be at a shoestrings. Like he's like a Nestor Cortez out there. He might throw off your tempo, something like that. So I think if you got a tough righty coming in, I'm gonna put Joe out there. But I'll save Jared for the 9th.
I can get behind all that. My competitive fire will showcase a complete all-out effort, like Jay Lee said. But my shoulder and my elbow are going to be screaming real quick. So,
but you're saying I hope you probably can't pitch back-to-back games. Like we're going to have to rest you.
He's a postseason pitcher
for sure. No,
He He might need a year off back to back. I don't think he can pitch back to back years.
What would probably happen? So I know at least one listener will get this reference because we talk about it. But if you've ever seen Rookie of the Year, the main pitcher tears his arm and like the soundtrack is a guitar solo. That would probably happen with my arm, and then I would just immediately start a fight with the batters. So hopefully we both get tossed, and then Jay Lee can come in and get like a 4-out save.
I was wondering that. Could we start Joe and just say, "Hey, Mike Trout's batting second. Get him ejected." That's all we got to do.
Sure. As long as no one finds out about that, that's our game plan.
We got a fighter for an opener.
And not only that, our fight spills into the on deck circle where Shohei has to get involved, and now I've got Trout and Shohei kicked out.
There you go. And suspension won't take place until next year, so we're good for the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right,
let's get talk. Any final thoughts? No, we're good. All right, so we're kicking off. Well, congratulations to the Rangers. I don't know if we said that enough. Well done, Texas. You went out and brought in the guys, and everybody's like, "Why are they spending so much money? Why did DeGrom go there?" And voila, here you are. It worked when other teams are spending money, and it has backfired drastically. The Rangers put together a team that clicked, so it was fun to watch. Good team, not going anywhere. They'll be right back. I'm interested to see what you guys say about free agency, what they're going to do. So that'll be. So we're going to do this wrap up pod today, and then we're going to be recording our free agent pod, and it'll drop a couple days after this as well. So be looking out for that, listeners. You can follow along and be ready for our next pod by taking some free agent predictions yourself and having fun with that. So as we look forward to free agent predictions, we've got two key categories of players. We got the player options and opt-outs, and the guys that received qualifying offers, which drastically changes the free agent market with both those groups now all being officially defined. So talk about player options and opt-outs. You guys can go online and find who this is. But Corey, start with you. Something that stuck out to you, some guys you're excited for or surprised that they stayed. What are your thoughts?
I'll take a second and just quickly, because I know people won't look this up, give a brief. Yeah, it won't be brief. I'll give an explanation of what these mean. Players sign contracts to play for teams. In these contracts, there are different things that you can put in them to try and entice them. There's opt-outs, player options, club options, and mutual options. Opt-outs and player
investing options.
That's true. Investing options. Opt-outs and player options are about the same, except player options are at the end of the contract, and opt-outs can be at any point in the contract. So somebody could sign a 7-year contract and have an opt-out after year 3. They could also have a player option for that 7th year. Basically, that means that the player at the point in the opt-out or for his player option can decide that he would like to he'd like to decline it and go to free agency. There's a club option, which only happens at the end of the contract, where the team can choose to accept or decline that option based on a previously agreed amount of money. A mutual option is just the player and the club both have to accept it. Vesting option, so if there's like a pitcher, it could be like if this pitcher throws 150 innings the year before, his option will kick in and he'll get, again, a previously agreed upon amount.
That's a good discussion. I'm glad you brought that up. Like, why would these options be in there? For a player option, you usually add that on for somebody you want to try to entice maybe to come to your team when you're not their first choice. So you give the player a little extra control at the back end of the contract. Hey, if you enjoy it here, or if you get injured, you can opt into another year of a big salary. But if you're healthy, you can decline it and go to free agency. But we get you for that 1 year.
We saw with Javier Baez opted into his remaining 40 years and $98 million with the Detroit Tigers after a horrendous season.
Yep.
And then the other one is the qualifying offer, which basically extends, I forget what percentage it is, but it's like some, like the 85th percentile salary or something like that of the league, which this year was $20,325,000. And it's a 1 year. $20 million contract that you extend to this player. They can either accept that 1-year contract or decline it. If they decline it, and then another team signs them, the team that offered them the qualifying offer will get draft picks, and the team that signed the player will lose draft picks. And the draft picks that are involved in that depend on where they're at and how much money they spend. Is from like
A lot of variables.
Yes, very complicated. But basically, it means that you're extending this 1-year contract to this player, and it gives you some protection if they do go to another team, or some protection, but you don't just lose them for nothing. But anyway, as far as I'm gonna two of the option players I thought was interesting, and then I thought the qualifying offer one was if maybe talking about a guy that I could see accepting the thing. But anyway, I was surprised that Marcus Stroman opted out. I know the starting pitching market is thin. He had a very bad second half of the season, and he was injured, and he declined 1 year and $21 million. And I don't think he'll get a higher average annual value contract than $21 million. But with these pitchers, I think what they're looking for is kind of the long-term, the safety net of like, he might get a 3-year deal worth $45 million. And so still $15 million a year. And he's got that for 3 years, and it's a net gain of $24 million. Again, making these numbers up.
Yeah, your scrub veteran 1-year deals to be your fifth starter usually get 10 to 12 million. I mean, the guy could be hurt for the last 3 years, but he's a vet that's proven he can do it. Mm-hmm. So Stroman will get more money. The AV, you're right, probably won't be as high, but might get to 20 million.
The other one I thought was interesting was the Liam Hendriks contract, because he had a 1-year, $15 million club option or a $15 million buyout. So a lot of times with these club options, there'll be a buyout attached. It basically says, if you decline my salary for this next year, you still are going to pay me some amount of money. Usually it's like
which 20, usually 25%, is much less. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's what they his $15 million buyout is $1.5 million per year for 10 years. So it was a really funky, like, there's been a lot of weird stuff going on with contracts, and just like
I don't know if I've ever seen this.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously it lowers the payroll for the next year by $13.5 million, but Liam Hendriks is like, okay, which, I mean, like $1.5 million 10 years from now is probably worth significantly less than $1.5 million now. So it's not an exact, it's not an apples to apples sort of thing, but it is an interesting thing that happened. Then qualifying offers, I thought it was kind of interesting. There are only 7 people. I feel like there's usually more. I could be making that up though.
Well, there's more rules with qualifying offer now. They have to be on your team the entire year. Yeah. So if you got traded in the middle of the year, you cannot be offered a qualifying offer, and you can only be offered once in your entire lifetime, which that changed a couple years ago. I think it used to be 2 or 3, and so it's less and less people that are offered these for sure. Let's talk about player options and opt-outs before we go to the qualifying offer. Hendriks, is he out for next year? Do you have Tommy John, or does he get back next year?
No, he's back. He was back this year.
I thought he got hurt. He did. Correct me if I'm wrong. He had the cancer, right? And then he blew his arm.
Liam Hendriks. Yes, there's 2 Hendriks on that list.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Liam Hendriks. I thought you were talking about
Kyle as well.
No, sorry, Liam Hendriks.
Yes,
he's out next year.
He did something to his arm.
Yeah, so that's interesting. See that $1.5 million for 10 years. He'll be back at some point, but he's got that cushion to fall on. What about the rest of you guys? Interesting options and opt-outs that you've noticed.
The real quick one that stuck out to me, I think we alluded to it a little bit, was Tim Anderson. Like, they just decline it without. I mean, you could have got something from him at the trade deadline. So that one's the one, the head scratcher for me. Even if it was just like a single A ball player, now you're just losing him for absolutely nothing. So interesting to see that, but I mean, probably both sides were okay with that anyway, I guess. So that's really the only one that I'm like, oh, okay, that's quite interesting. So, and then I think just real quick, the Eduardo, where you guys want to. I mean, left some money on the table, but I think he could probably get more years somewhere else and probably in a more competitive team. I would
Yeah, and
think.
he said today that geography doesn't matter. Do you see that?
Mhm.
After declining the
Apparently it
Dodgers.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, after declining the trade of the Dodgers today, he said he'll go anywhere. I'm going to jump in there because you mentioned Tim Anderson actually got his baseball savant pulled up because I thought that was very interesting. One, how could you not trade him? And apparently they did. And nobody wanted him, which is amazing that no one would bet on him getting a rebound season next year for a 1 year, $14 million deal. Basically, is what you would have done if you would have acquired him this year. So his OPS dropped down to 582 this year. He only hit one homer and almost 500 at bats, which is insane. I didn't realize how bad he did play after hitting over 300 the last 2 years. His baseball savant is all dark blue and gray. The one thing that's red is his base running value for offensively. And then for defensively, he was -1 outs this year, or -1 run this year, -1 last year, +2, +2, +2. So he's been hovering around basically league average defensively at shortstop. And before this year was a 300 hitter. Lots of swing, lots of contact, very little walk, and his power disappeared this year. So very interesting because if you look at the shortstop market, and we kind of talk about this in free agency too, there's nobody. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. If nobody wanted for 1 year 14, will somebody offer him a free agent deal better than that? Because there's no other shortstops out there. So yeah, it's a very interesting one. But I know the White Sox got that Montgomery kid that's tearing up the fall league. So I'm sure he'll just be the opening day shortstop and they'll move on.
Yeah, as you were describing him, I thought of myself. Not a lot of walks, swing and miss, and no power.
No swing and miss.
No
swings a lot, makes a lot of contact. It just doesn't go very far.
One strikeout per game. I guess that's typical nowadays. But
well, yeah, that's true.
So none of the pickups really surprised me. I've never been a fan of Josh Bell, but I've also never not been a fan of a 1 year deal. Like if you're giving a guy 1 year, $50 million, I mean, whatever. It's 1 year. So all the rest of them pretty much made sense. The one that kind of stuck out to me, always liked him, always been a fan. I'll just say that. And if you look at his past like 3 years, he's been pretty solid.
Waka waka waka.
Waka waka waka. 2 years, 32 mil. You know, I think you pay that. I think he can make 16 million AAV on the market. Look at his numbers. He's not probably going to give you 200 innings, but if he can give you 25 starts of 1.1 whip ball, I mean, are you not going to give 2 for 32 for that? You probably give more. So I think he'll probably match that on the open market.
Who was he with? What team was that?
San Diego, I think, right?
San Diego, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm wondering. I think this is San Diego, like, whoopsie. I don't know if you saw the news that they had to take out a loan at the end of the year. They're expecting to make the playoffs and have – it's kind of shady how they're talking about it because it sounds like loans happen a lot. But we knew the last couple of years they've really extended themselves, expecting a deep playoff run, and they have failed to make the playoffs. So, yeah, that might be more telling of San Diego's financial situation than anything, that they couldn't afford that one. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, I mean, probably the best changeup I've ever seen with the Cards organization. Just always struggled to stay healthy, but it seems like the past 3 or so years, he's at least been able to give 20-plus starts of quality ball.
Yeah, I like all you guys' decisions. I'll just talk about a lot of those guys. Josh Bell, I think it's cool that he's choosing to play in Miami. I would think that would mean he's open to a long-term deal there. Else he would have just left after he just had a hot stretch and got a new free agent deal instead elsewhere. So that's an interesting one. But of course, got to talk about Charlie Morton. Just keeps rolling out there. He'll be 40 next year. His last 3 years, he's outperformed Nola in just every category the last 3 years, except for innings pitched. And Nola's about to go out and set the market for pitching contracts this year. I bet he'll probably be the number one guy. And yet Morton's outperformed him the last 3 years. So I can't argue with that 1 year, 20 more million to Morton. Hopefully his finger doesn't fall off at the end of next year like it did this year. But I like it.
How many consecutive years has he been on 1 year deals now?
See, the first time they got him, it was a year and an option, and then they just keep adding an option on every time. So he's basically going year to year with the Braves because he wasn't for sure if he's going to retire. And when the Braves picked him up, he's like, "Yeah, I'll pitch for you guys again," because he came up as a Brave. He's from that area, and he's enjoyed it, and he keeps pitching well. I mean, he's still popping 97 with. He still had the best rated curveball, I think, this year as far as RPMs go, for starters. So yeah,
Not bad.
can't argue with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All
So
right.
take us to the qualifying offers there, Corey.
Yep. And this is another situation, I think, where all these guys will get more than $20 million contracts. Like, none of these guys are going to get 1 year deals, I don't think. You got Shohei, Aaron Nola, Blake Snell, Sonny Gray, Matt Chapman, Josh Hader, and Cody Bellinger. Trying to think of who accepts it. I don't think anybody does. If somebody did, though, I would be looking at like Matt Chapman because his bat this year fell off the face of the earth.
He was awesome for a little bit.
Yeah, he was a 4-WAR guy, and his defense is phenomenal. But do you take that? Like, he's a guy that I would imagine could bet on himself, take the 1 year $20 million for sure at free agency next year and try and cash in then. But I think everybody else. I was thinking about Hader, but he already made $14 million this year. Like, he's gonna cash in too. So Chapman would be my pick. I don't think anybody does, but it's my highest percentile there. I think we can probably breeze through this pretty quick. There's not a lot of options here to talk about, but
I mean, the free agent market for the third baseman is probably not insanely like big either, right? Probably like the shortstop.
there's some guys. I think Chapman would be
That'd be the premier guy, and you got Candy, who kind of tailed off and was just league average when it's all said and done.
And whether or not he plays third too, Candy. But
while you're looking that up, I'll just give you Chapman's rundown. Through April, he had a 1.1 OPS. Then May 585, June 633, July was back up to 908, August 532, 68. So he had 2 over 900 in 4 months under 650.
Oops.
But his floor is a 20 homer Gold Glover.
Mm-hmm.
In a market that, like I said, third base, I can't think of anybody else that would. I mean, he'd definitely be the number one guy. But it would be interesting if he would take that qualifying offer. I think you're right. He's the only one that really has a chance to take it. Go back to a good team that would have playoff aspirations next year, and see if he can do slightly better. But he is going to be the wrong side of 30, so this is the year to cash in the big contract before it gets worse.
Are you saying it's all downhill from 30?
It is.
For baseball players, it is. Unless you're Charlie Morton.
I think at least half of these dudes, maybe not half. Maybe I should retract this statement before I even make it. But other than like Sonny Gray, all these guys are from teams that could probably just resign them back if they wanted to. You did talk about the Padres thing of them taking out a loan. And I never got if that was actually weird, if that was actually normal, or they are hurting for money. So I'm not sure what to think about that, but they're all from big market teams that could sign them back. And when we get to our free agent predictions, I think I have at least one or two going back. But I also think whoever signs Cody Bellinger is going to immediately regret that too, but we'll see about that. Because they're going to pay him. And
yeah.
His baseball savant's not pretty either.
Just depends which Cody Bellinger you're getting, what month of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about where the stove's been hot at. And that is the managerial carousel.
It's wild.
Yes.
With some bangers to start off the off season. no one was more surprised than myself. I got a Zoom instant message from a coworker who's a Cardinals fan with a link to an article. It said Craig Counsell is going to manage the Cubs, and I was like, "Is this like The Onion or something? Have you sent me to a fake news website?" And so then I spent the next don't tell my boss. I spent the next 30 minutes trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And
well, good thing
also,
these episodes don't air, so we're good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Secret safe with us and our
also
moms.
trying to figure out how I felt about it. And I came down on the side of good. With some complicated feelings, which everybody goes through at certain points in their life.
Not once.
But it's I don't think it's a knock against David Ross. I think it was he was a victim of the opportunity to get Counsell over there, and it all came together in like 5 days, and it was a very well kept secret. So I'm excited. It was really interesting to go through. Once I've figured it out, go to my Twitter timeline and because it's like, oh, there's a mystery team. It's like, when is there a mystery team in a manager signing a contract? But it was wild, and I enjoyed it, and I think it's going to turn out pretty well. I think Craig Counsell is a better game manager than David Ross. I think David Ross is a good clubhouse manager guyer. But when you look at what Craig Counsell has been able to do in Milwaukee, especially with the roster turnover, because I think it's like Christian Yelich is the only guy that's on the team still that was there for the first season he managed. That might not be true, but it's something like that. The Brewers turn over their roster a lot.
He was there before Yelich.
Really?
Yelich came middle of the season. Counsell's already there.
But it's
the best stretch of Milwaukee's history.
Yes,
was Stearns and Counsell.
So
and they're both gone.
Between Counsell playing and managing, 7 of the 9 Brewers postseason teams have included Craig Counsell,
and he's from that area.
Yeah,
or he lives there now.
And I think that well, I mean, obviously he's the very large bag of money, aka elephant in the room here, is that he got the highest paid manager contract in the history of Major League Baseball. So I'm sure that weighed on his decision pretty heavily, but he did get to stay relatively close to where his family is and where he's grown up and all that stuff. So, obviously the money is enticing, but it seemed like there were some geographical considerations as well.
There have been reports that he was planning on setting the market for managers. And Milwaukee offered him 5.5, which would have been the highest paid manager next year.
Yes.
Chicago came in with 8, which is the highest all time.
And then the Mets signed Carlos Mendoza for $4.5 million for his entire contract of 3 years. So $1.5 million per year.
Well,
so, and it's like right before Counsell signed with the Cubs, he's like, well, maybe we should have talked that out a little bit longer. But I know, Aaron, you'll have some thoughts on some of this, and I don't know I know there's a guy who's a current coach for the Padres that you other two guys are familiar with. If you want to weigh in on that, but if you guys have any particular teams you want to talk about, I'll hand it over to Aaron to discuss maybe the Angels' recent announcement.
I guess I could.
Yeah,
it does surprise me. Of course, we found out today that Ron Washington is going to the Angels. I'd assume Perry Niasen, the current GM over there, came from the Braves, already knows Wash, and Wash has also taken Eric Young to be his third base coach, which was the Braves' first base coach, and Wash, of course, was the third base coach. So Braves lost both their coaches to the Angels, and then Ryan Goins, who had played and retired as a Brave, has been coaching the Braves minor league system. He's also going, so a little fearful who else Wash is going to take over there, but it just speaks to Wash's camaraderie and connections that he had with the Braves.
Yep. Just in. He took Acuna too.
Which one? Which one? So it speaks to Washington's character and relationships, how everybody loves him. And you see that how hard the infielders have worked. Like even have Ozuna learning first base. Ozuna wanted to, but like Wash for being in his 70s is one of the hardest working coaches out there. And it's been a while. I know it kind of got a little tainted there at Texas, but he was the last manager to take Texas to the World Series back-to-back years. And he had some personal issues that knocked him out of that spot. And the last couple of seasons, people have interviewed and nobody's taken him because you've seen more and more going to the young, inexperienced analytics yes men as opposed to the strong-willed old school baseball guys. But then you see the managers who were successful this year. By and large, it's the old school guys that accept some analytics that don't completely turn it off. But yeah, so he's going to be a great fit. Angels need some course correction. It'll be interesting what kind of team they have for him to coach, but he'll definitely be a great fit there. So sad to see him leave, but he deserves it.
I always kind of wonder.
What's in Wonder Bread?
Is that still a thing? Or am I thinking of bunny bread? What's in bunny bread? That's the real question. But I always wonder how much impact a baseball coach has. Basketball, you draw up plays, I guess, or maybe you give it to your superstar and run ISO. But football, you have plays. Most sports, you have like plays. And there's a little bit of that in baseball, but mostly it's like, hey, go get a hit, or I'm going to bring you in. Don't give up hits. So I always kind of wonder, like, yes, it matters, but does it matter to the point of, holy crap, let's fire this guy and get this guy in here real quick. So, whatever. Craig Counsell, I look at the Milwaukee Brewers team and kind of an omega lull at it, and that they have won so much, and they've won with pitching, but they're not big spenders. They have that roster turnover, like he said, and he's done well. So obviously he's doing something right. Got paid fat. Good for him. I don't mean to be mean about this, but I didn't think Ron Washington was still around, as in like alive. So I'm glad he's getting another shot. I remember watching him in the World Series against the Cardinals, and just during that time. And I mean, he is fiery. He's fun to watch in the dugout. He'd probably be, one guy you want in your corner and one guy you don't want mad at you if you were a player. So that'd be cool. Some of these other teams and guys are getting jobs, and guys that are looking for jobs, I'm not super like up to date on them. Other than Mike Schilt, I think he probably deserves another chance to manage somebody. But
that's who Corey's alluding to.
Thoughts.
He's been in San Diego with bench coach the last couple of years. He seems to be the top internal candidate in San Diego to step up now that Melvin went to the Giants. So it'll be interesting if Schilt gets that chance, because he didn't do anything to lose the last job.
Right.
Would you like to elaborate just maybe on him losing that last job? Seemed like you're pretty happy about it.
Looking at me? You talking to me?
Yeah. Yeah. You're Jared.
No, he shouldn't have lost his last job. And you can put it right now. This is my first prediction for the new season. If he becomes the Padres' new manager, I guarantee you they'll win that division.
I like it.
All right, write it down.
I like some of those names that are on there that haven't, like Stephen Vogt. He's always been a favorite everywhere he ends up. So it's interesting that he got a job. I know he's been coaching somewhere the last couple years, maybe Oakland.
Mariners.
Okay. I expect Don Mattingly will get back in it sometime soon. He might be a good fit to replace Baker in Houston, another old school guy that's got experience. But yeah, I think Mark DeRosa, I think you're going to see him get a job soon. I know he's been interviewed a lot. Seems to have a real good reputation around the game, knows old school, knows analytics, and he managed the USA this past year. So he's getting some experience under his belt. So that'd be an interesting one. But hey, maybe he'll come and coach third base and push Chipper Jones out to the left field coach for the Braves this year. That'd be great.
I was thinking DeRosa for the Brewers. He's kind of a similar guy to
Yeah,
Counsell.
makes sense.
Maybe not. Like
What if
Counsell
Ross
does
goes there? Ross is
what?
different than Counsell, but what if David Ross is up in
I
Milwaukee
don't.
now?
Yeah, and well, I don't because like, it seems like Counsell's. I don't want to say he's more cerebral than anybody else because I don't know him personally, and I don't know Mark DeRosa, but like DeRosa does seem more like kind of a feel guy. Like he's a younger guy, but still kind of an old school type of person. But I do think he does understand analytics as well. But he's just seems like he'd be a good fit for the Brewers. I think just kind of like from a personality standpoint. But I don't know what's going to go on with David Ross. It'll be interesting. I'm sure he's kind of reeling because I imagine he did not know what was going to be going on either. I think he could be an Astros guy, but I know I think the Astros have a lot of options. I thought they talked about Brad Ausmus as well, long time Astros
and
catcher.
he's had some experience. Is Espada still in Houston?
I don't think so, but he was a
He's
hot
been
move a couple
there.
of years ago.
Yeah,
because I know
as their bench coach.
whenever they hired Ross, I know they interviewed Espada, and I think he was kind of the second option. But
The one on this list I think you're not going to see for a little bit is Gabe Kapler. He's had two chances in two big markets, and it has not worked out. He's too far analytics, and it hasn't worked out.
But yeah, for I don't really expect any major free agent news for probably a couple of months. So it's been nice to kind of have this managerial hot stove to kick off the postseason. But we got a few spots still left to fill. It'll be interesting to see who where the dominoes fall.
So we got the Astros, of course, have got a lot of success, stability there. Manager just pretty much retired on top after the last couple seasons they've had there. So that'd be a nice spot for anybody to take. The Brewers are probably the hardest spot to pick up now because they're pretty much flat out rebuilding. Daniel Stearns. David Stearns. David.
Daniel Stern is the
actor. Yeah. David Stearns left to go to New York, and then Counsell's gone, so they all need brand new leadership. And the Padres, it looks like a good place to be, but who knows what this offseason is going to entail with their roster. So it'll be interesting.
Yep.
Hey, one last quick question before we close this out. This wasn't on the agenda, but high-level thoughts on Gold Gloves and who got snubbed. Anybody got thoughts on that? You looked at it at all?
The Cubs middle infield, awfully shiny.
Really shiny.
Yeah. I don't really have a problem. It seems like Dalton Varsho, who led the league in left field defensive run saves. Because like Gold Glove previously it seemed to always go to like the people who made the really flashy plays. Like now we have good analytics and statistics to figure out who's actually a good defender. Because sometimes when you make the flashy play, that just means you didn't play the ball very well.
Right.
Jim Edmonds.
We've talked about that.
Jared and I know about getting all the news that way.
Yeah. So it seems kind of weird when you see people that lead these categories that aren't winning. But other
that's
than
a trade that worked out for everybody because Gabby Moreno played well, obviously for the Diamondbacks.
Varsho hit terribly. He had Matt Chapman's disease. But I don't really have
the opposite. The opposite's true in the NL. How bad the left fielders were. Like Eddie Rosario was neutral, and he was a finalist. like what's going on out there? Like the left fielders in the National League were poor.
Hey, Ian Happ. Cubs went 3 for 3 on their finalists, by the way. On
Happ got it and left. I couldn't remember. Yeah. And then Washington turned Riley into a Gold Glove finalist. I was happy to see. He doesn't have the range a lot of third basemen have, but he has a cannon and makes all the plays that he gets to. So that was fun. Any Cardinals make it? I really don't know. I haven't looked.
I didn't watch any baseball this year, so I'm not exactly sure about the Gold Glove.
Cardinals? Cardinals. Because they made the Gold Glove for Edmund for utility last year, and then Donovan got it instead of Edmund. Edmund got what, shortstop or second or something? Second?
Yes, second base.
Yeah, because Dansby got short last year.
Yeah. So, I don't really think anybody. I don't think anybody made it, but He didn't deserve it, but it was just kind of sad to see Arenado streak end. But it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of had a down year. Expect him to be back more close to norm next year. The weird year in St. Louis. All righty, guys.
Bummer.
Well, that wraps up our postseason edition of
Post-post.
Rake Your Position. Once again, congratulations to your 2023 MLB World Series champion Texas Rangers. They will be back in the mix next year, I'm sure. And next time you hear from us, guys, we're going to be having all kinds of fun with free agent talk and predictions. We are going to use MLB Trade Rumors top 50 list to do predictions for us. So you can go on there as well and make predictions before our episode drops and have the conversation with us. Are there any final closing remarks, gentlemen?
All of our predictions from the beginning of the season were near spot on. And next time we make predictions for 2024, I bet they're just as good.
All right, so we're about to make 200 free agent predictions. Over under, we get 5% right.
Under. Not even
Hard.
hard.
We'll get over 5%. Come on.
We had everybody reach out to us asking for our opinion because
That's
they were
right.
so good. So I mean,
I got inside sources.
yeah.
Wash is actually hiring me to be lead predictor on his staff. So
And
I'll see
I've
you guys.
also got
And,
Joe's inside sources, which what he doesn't know is I'm his inside source and he's mine. So it's really just ideas bouncing off each other.
That's you
It's a
who's been
circle.
texting me saying you're the GM of MLB.
Of MLB, yes.
Yeah. Also, there's a Nigerian prince. He's got $10 million, but you have to send 5,000 to
That guy.
release it. Yeah.
he's got my credit card number.
You know about him too? Yeah.
What a nice guy.
All right. Let's get us out of here.
All righty. Until next time, don't forget to rake your
position.
Bye-bye, 2023.
Darkness, my friend.